This is a $160 million superyacht moored on the French Riviera. It belongs to Larry Ellison, the sixth richest man on the planet. He named it the Mashi. We've renamed it the Trump Propagandist. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Larry Ellison co-founded Oracle Corporation in 1977. Today, Oracle is one of the most powerful technology companies in the world. Its cloud infrastructure runs governments, banks, and militaries across the globe. Ellison's personal fortune sits somewhere north of $140 billion. That's not a number most human beings can truly comprehend. So let's put it this way. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you nearly 400 years to spend what Larry Ellison is worth. But money at a certain scale stops being about comfort. It stops being about security. At $140 billion, money becomes something else entirely. It becomes power, structural power. The kind that doesn't just buy influence, it buys the systems through which influence flows. And Larry Ellison has been very deliberate about where he directs his. Let's start with Donald Trump. Ellison has been one of Trump's most prominent billionaire backers. He hosted a fundraiser for Trump at his Hawaiian estate, an event that reportedly pulled in tens of millions of dollars in a single evening. In the world of political financing, that's not a donation, that's an investment, and investments come with expectations. Those expectations became visible almost immediately after Trump returned to the White House. One of the first major tech deals of Trump's second term involved TikTok, the short video platform used by over 170 million Americans. The Chinese parent company, ByteDance, was facing a forced sale or an outright ban. Trump intervened, and when the dust settled, the Ellison family had secured a controlling stake in TikTok's U.S. operations. Think about what that means. TikTok is not just an entertainment platform. For an entire generation, it is the news. It is where political opinion is formed, where movements are built, where narratives are made and broken. Handing control of that to a Trump-aligned billionaire family is not a business transaction. It is a media takeover, one of the most significant in modern American history. And the consequences were not subtle. Almost immediately after the ownership transition, prominent pro-Palestinian voices began reporting that their content was being suppressed. Reach dropped, videos stopped circulating, accounts built over years lost their audiences almost overnight. Whether that was algorithmic, editorial, or deliberate policy is something the new owners have not been transparent about, but the timing was impossible to ignore. This is the playbook. You don't need to issue orders. You don't need to write memos. You just need to own the platform. The platform does the rest. But TikTok was only the beginning. Last year, the Ellison family was central to the acquisition of Paramount Global. Paramount is not just a movie studio. Paramount owns CBS News, one of the oldest and most watched television news operations in the United States. And since that acquisition, CBS News' coverage of the American military strikes on Iran has been, to put it plainly, notably pro-war, framing that accepts official government justifications, framing that marginalizes dissenting voices, framing that presents military escalation as measured and necessary rather than dangerous and contested. Is that a coincidence? It might be. Media coverage is shaped by dozens of factors: editorial tradition, advertiser pressure, audience expectation, individual journalist judgment. But it is also shaped by ownership, and ownership sets the culture. Ownership decides who gets promoted and who gets sidelined. Ownership decides what questions get asked and which ones quietly disappear. Now add the next piece. The Ellison family is reportedly in advanced discussions to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery owns CNN. Let that land for a moment. CNN, whatever you think of it, whatever its flaws, is one of the most globally recognized news brands on the planet. If that acquisition goes through, a single family with deep financial and personal ties to Donald Trump will have significant influence over TikTok, CBS News, and CNN simultaneously. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has already made his feelings about CNN very clear. He publicly denounced the network for being insufficiently supportive of Trump's military campaign in Iran. He said, and these were his words, that he couldn't wait for the Ellisons to take over. And Trump himself listed the CNN acquisition as one of his wins. Not a business deal, not a market development. One of his wins. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordination. That is a sitting president and his defense secretary openly celebrating the prospect of a politically aligned billionaire taking control of a major news network. In any functioning democracy, that would be a scandal. Here, it was barely a headline. Now let's talk about Benjamin Netanyahu, because Ellison's political relationships don't stop at the American border. He is a close personal friend of the Israeli prime minister. He once offered Netanyahu a senior position at Oracle. Netanyahu's family has vacationed on Ellison's private island in Hawaii, and Ellison is by most available accounts the largest private donor to the Israeli military outside of official government channels. These are not casual relationships. These are the relationships of a man who has chosen sides in American politics, in Middle Eastern geopolitics, in the global debate over war, sovereignty, and civilian life. And he's backed those choices with billions of dollars, and now with control over the information systems through which billions of people understand the world. This is the story of our era. It is not a conspiracy. It doesn't need to be. It is simply what happens when democratic guardrails erode slowly enough that no single moment feels like a crisis, even as the cumulative effect is catastrophic. Billionaires accumulate media power, politicians accommodate billionaires, and the public, consuming news through platforms and channels quietly shaped by the same financial interests, struggles to see the full picture. Larry Ellison is not uniquely villainous. He is a symptom of a system that has allowed the most consequential communications infrastructure in the history of humanity, the platforms, the networks, the algorithms that shape what billions of people believe to be true, to be concentrated in the hands of a few dozen individuals. Individuals who are unelected, unaccountable, and increasingly openly aligned with specific political outcomes. Meanwhile, the Mashi sits in the Mediterranean sunshine, $160 million worth of fiberglass and steel, a monument to the distance between the people who own the narrative and the people who live inside it. We renamed it the Trump Propagandist, not because one name changes anything, but because naming things accurately is one of the few acts of resistance still available to the rest of us. The billionaires bought the news. Now they're shaping the wars. And then they sail away, moored in international waters, accountable to nobody.